They saw the ink and shook their heads. A combat medic cross tattooed on a soldier's forearm at a Tier 1 base. Surely a joke. But they didn't know what it meant, or where it came from. Not yet. They thought she was just a medic, just a woman with a pretty face and a ridiculous tattoo. Until Lieutenant General Harrison Foster walked in, caught a glimpse of her arm, and saluted first. The sun blazed down on the scorching tarmac at Fort Braxton, a U.S. military installation stationed deep in the unforgiving sands of North Carolina. Rows of Humvees sat baking in the heat. Marines marched, shouted, sweated, and in the background, walking unnoticed between armored giants, was a woman in tan fatigues with her sleeves rolled high and clipboard in hand. Staff Sergeant Madison Cooper, 26 years old, Medical Support Division. The kind of soldier no one looked twice at. Her boots were polished, her reports accurate, her voice soft but direct. She carried no weapon. She was stationed nowhere near combat zones. And aside from one small visible detail, an intricately inked combat medic cross tattoo just above her right wrist, she was invisible. "She's got a medic badge on her arm," one of the infantry guys muttered in the chow line. "What you gonna do, bandage the enemy to death?" Laughter followed. Madison ignored it. As always, she moved through Fort Braxton like a ghost, well-liked by the supply officers, invisible to the brass, and considered utterly forgettable by the Tier 1 operators who used her department for resupply. SEALs, Green Berets, Delta, they all passed her by without so much as a glance. Until Tuesday. It was supposed to be just another requisition pickup. A blacked-out convoy pulled into base. 6 figures stepped out, all in gear, bearded and scarred and silent. Tier 1 types, the kind of men who spoke with their eyes and made the walls feel smaller when they entered a room. Madison was standing at the rear supply desk when they approached. The lead SEAL looked her up and down. "You the clerk?" he asked. "I'm the logistics officer of record," she replied without blinking. He smirked. "Didn't ask for your resume, Doc." One of the younger operators chuckled. "Man, I've seen more muscle on a Starbucks barista." Still, she handed them the signed-off crate with the cereal keg intact. Her posture remained firm. Her expression stayed calm. But then something changed. The last man stepped forward. He was older than the others. White hair at the temples, eyes like scorched iron. The stripes on his shoulder were subdued, but his authority wasn't. He froze when he saw her. No, not her. Her tattoo. The room went silent. He straightened, blinked once, then slowly raised his hand in a formal salute. The other SEALs stared. "Sir?" asked one of them. But the commander didn't break his gaze, didn't drop his salute. Madison hesitated just for a moment, then returned it. "Permission to speak freely, Sergeant?" he asked, voice low. She nodded. He leaned in and whispered 4 words no one expected to hear. "You were at Fallujah." Every muscle in the room tightened. The men who had been mocking her now stood still, staring at the combat medic cross tattoo on her wrist. It wasn't just a design. It was a symbol, coded, issued only to members of a top-secret joint operation known only by code name Operation Crimson Star, a mission that went off books 5 years ago and left 27 operatives unaccounted for. Everyone had presumed them dead. Madison Cooper was one of them. How are you still active?" the younger SEAL asked, this time with no sarcasm. But Madison didn't answer. She was already walking back toward the warehouse. The commander remained standing, his eyes still locked on the corridor she disappeared into. "She's not just active," he muttered. "She's the reason we're alive." The rest of the men didn't laugh anymore. The next morning came like a slap to the face. Madison arrived at chow at 0530 sharp. Still in standard fatigues, still carrying the weight of every pair of eyes glued to her back. The jokes hadn't died down, they'd multiplied. Someone had printed a blurry snapshot of her tattoo and taped it up near the mess hall entrance with the word "poser" scribbled in red marker. A few recruits laughed loud enough to make sure she heard. She didn't flinch, didn't slow, didn't say a word. She walked to the chow line, got her eggs and black coffee, and sat at the very edge of the dining area, alone, facing the wall. It would have been another day of silence if not for the 2 officers who entered 5 minutes later, Lieutenant Rodriguez and Major Stevens.
both career soldiers, both known to be particularly unforgiving to anyone who hadn't earned their place. They saw the tattoo photo, snickered. Then Rodriguez said, not quietly, "Looks like her tattoo has more clearance than her IQ." A burst of laughter. Madison placed her fork down slowly. Her shoulders relaxed, but her hands didn't move. Stevens approached, tapping the laminated tattoo photo with his index finger. "This you?" he asked, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Madison didn't respond. He stepped closer. "You think putting that emblem on your skin makes you a ghost? Makes you one of them? You're wearing history you didn't earn." Still no response. Rodriguez leaned in. "Let me guess, your boyfriend was a ranger? You stole it from his jacket while he slept." Madison looked up at him, eyes clear, steady, calm. "No," she said flatly, "but my CO wore it on his chest the day we breached a compound in Fallujah. I was third in." Stevens froze. "What did you say?" Madison stood up slowly, her back straight, her tray untouched. "You've had your laugh. Now let me speak with someone who knows what that emblem means." Then for the first time since her arrival, she marched straight down the middle of the mess hall. Every soldier's fork paused midair. Madison didn't break stride until she reached the door marked Operations. She knocked once. A voice inside, rough, direct, called out, "Enter." Colonel Marcus Kane, a man with salt and pepper hair and a silver combat medic badge above his heart, looked up from his desk as she stepped in. "Staff Sergeant Cooper, sir," she said, "requesting permission to clarify my record." He gestured for her to speak. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and laid it on the desk. It was worn, creased, and stamped with multiple security seals. Kane opened it and froze. The first line read, "Operation Crimson Star." Below it, operative code Angel 7. Role, Tier 1 Designated Combat Medic. Commanding Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Hayes, 75th Ranger Regiment. Kane blinked. This can't be right." Madison leaned in. "I was attached off books under SOCOM's Deep Vector program. I was the last operative out of Kandahar East when the compound was breached. The ink," she pulled back her sleeve to expose the full tattoo, a black combat medic cross encircled with coordinates. "That's the Angel code. Only 2 of us had it. The other is buried in Arlington." Kane didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stood up, walked around the desk, and saluted. Everyone in the adjacent hallway stopped moving. Through the open door, a few saw it happen. Colonel Kane, decorated, hard as nails, saluting a staff sergeant. Madison returned the salute, crisp and exact. Then she turned and exited the office. But the moment the mess hall saw her again, things changed. Rodriguez and Stevens were both silent, standing at attention near the coffee urn like kids caught cheating. One soldier mumbled, "She's Angel 7. Another whispered, "That op was a myth. I thought it was Ghost Protocol." Madison walked past all of them, past the wall where her photo was taped. Someone had already torn it down. She didn't say a word, but the silence she left behind was louder than all their laughter.